Quantum leaders, the guardian, applying the principle of quantum consciousness, oscillation between strong and weak forces. The guardian's natural style is steady, structured, and grounded in tradition. They are the anchor in chaotic environments, the ones who hold the container, protect integrity, and preserve order. But quantum consciousness teaches that true stability is not achieved through permanence. It arises from rhythmic oscillation between strong and weak forces. For the guardian, strength lies in protection, consistency, and rule-based execution. Yet their evolution unfolds through the weak force, moments of flexibility, softness, and adaptive presence. Their leadership becomes quantum not by holding the line at all costs, but by knowing when to hold and when to yield. With a motivation direction of away from, the guardian is wired to prevent disruption. The strong force expresses as caution, risk aversion, and system preservation. But if held too tightly, this becomes rigidity or resistance to necessary change. The weak force calls them into trust. Trust in the process, trust in others, trust in the system's ability to recalibrate. When guardians oscillate between vigilance and openness, they become protectors of evolution, not just preservation. Their attention focus on self keeps them grounded and responsible. The strong force here shows up as internal discipline and unwavering duty. But the weak force allows relational awareness. Guardians grow when they briefly step outside their role as regulator and sense how the system is breathing. By allowing occasional emotional permeability, they bring attunement to their precision and connection to their protection. With an internal frame of reference, the guardian trusts their inner rules and moral compass. The strong force shows up as conviction, but the weak force introduces curiosity. Are these rules still alive? Are these structures still relevant? When guardians oscillate between certainty and inquiry, they become wisdom keepers, not just enforcers. Their internal standards evolve into principles that guide, not control. Their procedural operational style favors routines and predictability. The strong force expresses through systems that run smoothly and repeatedly. But change does not arrive through repetition. It arrives through improvisation. The weak force invites a moment of deviation, an intuitive adjustment, or a quiet redesign. When guardians allow this, without losing structure, they transform from rule followers into living architects of stability. Their specific viewpoint keeps them attentive to detail. The strong force ensures that nothing slips, but the weak force brings perspective, stepping back to see not just what's happening, but why. Guardians oscillate most powerfully when they hold both, the pixel and the picture, detail without overwhelm, oversight without obsession. With a solo work preference, the guardian often prefers to handle things quietly and alone. The strong force here is control, clarity, and uninterrupted focus. But the weak force is interdependence. A brief moment of collaboration, a trusted handoff, a shared process, these do not weaken the guardian. They strengthen the field they hold. When they oscillate between solitary execution and conscious collaboration, they become system harmonizers. Their dissociated emotional engagement keeps their execution clean and unflustered. The strong force is neutrality, but the weak force is empathy, not emotional entanglement, but emotional wisdom. When the guardian allows just enough feeling to inform timing, tone, and leadership style, they become emotionally intelligent stabilizers, able to feel without being flooded. As matchers, guardians rely on precedent. The strong force preserves what's worked, but the weak force invites adaptation. What worked then might need tuning now. Oscillating between tradition and subtle innovation allows guardians to evolve without losing core values. They become the ones who carry continuity forward, not chain it to the past. Their through-time orientation makes them excellent at pacing, planning, and follow-through. The strong force ensures consistency. The weak force is attunement to the system's changing rhythms. When the guardian learns to adjust timelines in response to emergent needs, not abandoning structure, but flexing within it, they embody resilience in motion. And with a primary drive of things, the guardian builds tangible systems, protocols, and outcomes. The strong force ensures functionality. The weak force invites meaning. Why are we protecting this? What is this structure really serving? Guardians who oscillate between and reflecting begin to infuse their work with purpose. Their systems become not just safe, but sacred. In this rhythm of strong containment and gentle adjustment, the guardian evolves from protector of the old to midwife of the enduring. Their authority deepens, their presence expands. They stop holding stability as sameness and begin weaving stability as rhythm. In that space, the guardian becomes not just a rule keeper, but a field holder. Not just the wall, but the heartbeat within it. Quantum leaders, the guardian. Dynamic equilibrium as nature's core design. The guardian's natural style, orderly, consistent, and protection-oriented, naturally gravitates toward what can be preserved, standardized, and trusted. Yet true resilience is not found in static control, but in dynamic equilibrium, a living balance between structure and adaptability. For the guardian, stability is not the absence of change, it is the ability to respond to it without collapse. Dynamic equilibrium teaches them that their sacred role is not to stop change, but to filter it, allowing systems to flex without fracturing. With a motivation direction of away from, the guardian is highly attuned to disruption, disorder, and risk. The strong pole here is protection, tight protocols, early warnings, cautious decisions, but overprotection breeds stagnation. The weak pole is responsiveness, the ability to allow temporary mess in service of deeper reordering. When the guardian balances both, they become a stabilizer of movement, not by resisting change, but by giving it shape. Their attention focus on self anchors them in personal accountability and integrity. The polarity emerges between self-regulation and relational flow. Too much inner focus may create isolation or rigidity. Too much outer attunement risks losing their center. Dynamic equilibrium is found when guardians check in with themselves and consider the system around them. This rhythm builds relational trust without compromising personal discipline. With an internal frame of reference, they hold strong inner standards. The polarity here is conviction versus evolution. When internal rules go unquestioned, they become cages. When questioned too frequently, they lose coherence. The guardian thrives when they refine without abandoning. They ask, what values still serve? What forms need upgrading? This inner recalibration is where their wisdom matures. Their procedural operational style is highly ordered. The polarity here is between repetition and responsiveness. Guardians instinctively repeat what works, but dynamic systems ask, what's trying to shift? When guardians design processes that can flex without unraveling, they begin building living systems, reliable and regenerative. Their specific viewpoint makes them detail-oriented and thorough, but equilibrium calls them to zoom out occasionally. If they only see the micro, they lose the emerging pattern. If they only focus on the macro, they miss critical friction points. Guardians evolve by toggling, seeing how small adjustments ripple outward and how larger arcs can guide finer alignment. With a solo work preference, the guardian values focus and autonomy. The polarity arises between independence and connection. Too much solo effort can create bottlenecks. Too much collaboration can disrupt clarity. Guardians create balance by designing interaction into their work, moments of check-in, co-regulation, or shared maintenance, without sacrificing sovereignty. Their dissociated emotional engagement helps them stay calm under pressure. The polarity is objectivity versus empathy. Too much neutrality becomes cold. Too much empathy destabilizes precision. Guardians thrive when they remain calm, but attuned, allowing warmth to enter structure. Their sims then feel not just safe, but considered. As matchers, they replicate what's reliable. The polarity is tradition versus evolution. When they default to precedent, they may reinforce outdated models. When they overfocus on reinvention, they lose the wisdom of structure. Guardians become system guides when they retain what works and allow gentle upgrades. Their leadership holds history while enabling forward motion. Their through-time orientation supports planning, pacing, and legacy. The polarity lives in control versus responsiveness to timing. Guardians often plan well, but sometimes the moment asks for acceleration or pause. When they learn to flex timelines, speeding up, slowing down, adjusting expectations, they stop being ruled by the clock and start dancing with rhythm. And with a primary drive of things, they are focused on output, tools, and tangible results. The polarity here is utility versus purpose. Systems that only serve efficiency can drain life. Systems that serve meaning invite loyalty and evolution. When guardians build why into what, their structures become frameworks for human thriving, not just task completion. In this state of equilibrium, the guardian becomes more than a protector. They become a pattern holder, a rhythm tuner, a builder of stable forms that can evolve without collapse. They stop clinging to the past and begin listening for what is ready to stay and what is ready to shift. In this, they hold the paradox, keeping systems solid by letting them breathe. Stability redefined, not as stillness, but as intelligent motion. Quantum leaders, the guardian, observer effect, and the collapse of possibility. The guardian's natural style, structured, deliberate, and designed for safety, often assumes that their role is to respond to external conditions, not shape them. Yet the observer effect upends that assumption. What the guardian sees, expects, and monitors doesn't just reflect the system, it conditions it. The very act of paying attention becomes a creative act. Their vigilance, their concern, their presence in the room begins collapsing probabilities into form. Guardians are not just defenders of what is, they are quiet architects of what becomes. With a motivation direction of away from, the guardian focuses on risks, errors, and potential threats. This focus strengthens performance in many ways, but the quantum principle asks, what happens when the observer sees only what might go wrong? Over time, systems begin mirroring that caution. Teams become hesitant. Projects move slowly. The guardian leads most effectively when they begin shifting their gaze, balancing flaw detection with strength recognition. When they begin to look for what is working, they help stabilize not only what's safe, but what's possible. Their attention focus on self brings internal discipline and reliability, but what they believe about themselves, how responsible they feel, how burdened they are, radiates into the field. A guardian who sees themselves as holding everything together will begin attracting systems that lean too hard on them. But when they observe themselves as a node in a network, not the whole structure, the system reorganizes. Others step in. Shared stability begins to take root. With an internal frame of reference, they trust their own inner standards. But the observer effect warns, even internal beliefs, if unexamined, collapse emerging alternatives. If they believe people always need tight control or things fall apart unless I manage them, they start generating precisely that outcome. Guardians grow by gently auditing their inner narratives, not because they're wrong, but because they are active filters in the quantum field. Their inner logic becomes system design. Their procedural operational style makes them detail tracking and consistent. But each procedure they follow becomes a subtle directive. This is how we must do things. If the guardian views their systems as rigid, so will others. But if they observe their procedures as supportive containers rather than unbreakable rules, the system itself begins to flex and evolve. Their perspective becomes an unspoken permission slip. Their specific viewpoint focuses on micro-accuracy, ensuring no thread is missed. But in quantum reality, focus is a magnifier. If they fixate on every deviation, they collapse space for experimentation. When they allow themselves to soften their gaze, to include both micro and macro, they begin to see not only what is broken, but what wants to emerge. The observer becomes a facilitator of evolution, not just a monitor of error. With a solo work preference, the guardian often creates in private, but their observation still affects the collective. Even when quiet, their thoughts shape the energetic environment. A guardian who worries in silence still sends signals of contraction. One who holds calm, steady trust radiates coherence. Their attention carries tone, and that tone informs how others behave. Their dissociated emotional engagement gives them detachment, which can be useful in high-pressure situations. But even withheld emotion is observation. A lack of expressed reaction can be read by the field as resistance or distance. When the guardian becomes intentional with their emotional neutrality, offering warmth through timing, presence, or tone, their steady gaze becomes a source of quiet belonging. Emotionally informed observation becomes emotional design. As matchers, they replicate proven patterns. But here, the observer effect becomes particularly potent. If they only ever look for what has worked, they miss what is trying to work now. Their gaze locks reality into historical repetition. But when they choose to observe novelty gently, curiously, without immediate judgment, they begin collapsing new possibilities into coherence. Innovation doesn't require abandoning the past. It requires softening into the present. Their through-time orientation lets them hold timelines and schedules, but if they fixate too tightly on deadlines or progress markers, they may suppress organic timing. Some shifts can't be planned. They emerge when the system is ready. The Guardian begins leading quantumly when they observe timing as intelligence, not just sequence. Their attention becomes temporal wisdom, knowing not just when something should happen, but sensing when the system is ripe for it. And with the primary drive of things, the Guardian manifests outcomes, structures, and deliverables. But everything they build contains the trace of how they observed it. A report written in frustration carries constriction. A process designed with care holds coherence. Guardians who observe their own internal tone before building create artifacts that do more than function. They stabilize. They transmit trust. In this quantum light, the Guardians stop seeing themselves as the system's background process. They become a quiet force of coherence, shaping outcomes not by doing more, but by observing more consciously. What they choose to see becomes what holds. What they expect becomes what arrives. And when they begin to hold the field with clear, calm attention, not fearfully but faithfully, they become the stabilizing intelligence of transformation itself. The observer becomes the architect. The still point becomes the shift.